that. This year, we try to break, this takes a long time for us to prepare these things. So we try to break it down to two-hour meetings, or 2 3-hour meetings this year instead of the normal 2 hours. The reason we did that is because today we're going to talk about mound design. A lot of people have asked me to do this part, and I've kept procrastinating doing it because it does take so long from beginning to end. So we're going to go ahead and go through that today. The next session we'll have this year will be, I have the date later in the presentation, but I think it's December the 14th. It'll be also another 3 hours. And so far as we know, regulations will begin, new regulations from the state will start beginning of 2013. So we want to be prepared to have that information out to you guys. I don't expect a whole lot of changes from what we've done in the past. Fortunately, there are some counties out there that held on to the 1977 code, and now they're going to have quantum leap in the way they do things. I think we're going to be pretty much right on target for the future, so I think we'll be good there. Anyway, we welcome each one of you, and if you would, please make sure you sign in. That's the only verification we have that you were here. My memory is terrible, so I will forget as soon as you walk out the door. If you forgot to sign in, then it probably means you weren't here. So make sure you sign in halfway or partially through the meeting. We'll send that list downstairs. We'll have the certificates printed before you leave, and you can take them with you so that you have your 3-hour credit. Of course, we log all that too, but if you need that for another county, you'll have it if they accept it. So without anything further, today we're not only going to cover the mound designs, but we also going to give everybody an update on our property transfer program, which is more geared toward our service providers, and then our operation and maintenance program, which recently came online beginning of this year. So we're going to give you some updates there. But the bulk of what we want to talk about today will be the mound design. So without anything further, I'll have Jason up, and he'll begin discussion on property transfer.
All right, I'm Jason Smith. If you don't know me, you guys send a lot of reports to me, and we'll see how many roughly it changes daily. But I do get a lot of reports. There's my email address if you need to. It's also the best way to send me the reports if you can scan them in. If not, fax them.
Hey, Jason.
Yes.
There are a lot of old guys out here. You're going
Speak
to
louder.
have to keep up, son.
All right. Property transfer program. So far, what I can tell is I've reviewed around 505 sewage evaluations, around 84 water evaluations. Like I said, it's not required to do the water system evaluations, but when it's needed, we can do those. As far as the sewage systems, that changes daily. I'm doing them continuous pretty much. Changes, we're going to talk about the changes. This is the main thing. We're going to talk about changes to the form. We needed to revise a little things, make them a little more clear. We also, I have been pretty conservative on some of the stuff, so I wanted to make a little bit of changes to make more of the system satisfactory and recommend more things versus requiring more things. So one of the things I changed on there was secondary treatment. It never used to say type here. I want to know what type of aerator it is, if you can tell, if it's a jet, multi-flow, aquasafe, whatever. Second big change is going to be perimeter curtain drain. Usually just said drain. I didn't know if some people didn't know what that exactly was, because some people didn't mark it when it was on the diagram. But you definitely want to check the perimeter curtain drain. If you can find the outlet, make sure it's not silted in, make sure it's still draining. Sometimes either people mow around them and it starts to get all gunked up or it's not draining like it should. That's one thing. You want to make sure those outlets are still draining on those curtain drains. Diversion distribution boxes. This is a big change. We wanted to add, it always said diversion, I wanted to add distribution. A lot of people have been writing it in anyway, but I wanted to add distribution box. We also added a couple things: satisfactory, deteriorating, and inhibiting flow. You just circle which one it is. Inhibiting flow, we'll probably add a little bit more to that. I'm going to probably put inhibiting flow and collapsing or something like that. This is what's really going to spark me to follow up on it and get it fixed. If it's just concrete deteriorating and it's not falling apart, it's not inhibiting the flow, we'll probably just recommend that be done, but we're not going to follow up and make sure that gets done. Satisfactory, pretty self-explanatory there. Any questions so far on the form changes? This is on the first page, usually at the bottom. Page 2, I know the big question, whether I could tell if you had access to leach wells or not. I did put here, up here beside access to the septic tank, I also put access to leach wells, yes or no. Pretty straightforward. Did you get access? Did you not get access? That's gonna be yes or no. If you did get access, make sure you put, this is a change here in the middle part. I changed, they used to separate these on 2 separate lines and made them one group. We also want to have distance in inches from top of lid to water level. Some people put tank, like the bottom of the tank, where they estimate where the bottom of the tank is. I want to know how much cover is over top of the tank, not how deep the tank is set. Some people have been putting like, 60 inches, 64 inches. Some tanks are that deep, but when the leaching is shallow, the tank can't be that deep unless it has a pump. So if we have tank, what the water level is in the tank, pre and post. So pre-hydraulic and post-hydraulic. I want to have what it is before you hydraulic load, after, same way with aerobic, and then the leach well. We need to get access to the leach wells, partly because we have seen some where we didn't have access to the leach wells. They did the dye test, they ran 300 gallons of water in it, and when I requested to get them open, there was like 2 inches of airspace inside those leach wells. So when the next family moved in, it wasn't going to last. So that's why we want to make sure we have appropriate airspace in those leach wells. That's why we requested them to be open. I know some of it's going to be a pain sometimes. Sometimes there's no risers on them. It may require a little bit further investigation, but we need access to those leach wells. Next big change, softener discharge location. I know some people did separate. They always said, 2 septic system or exterior. Now you just circle which one it is to. If it's a discharge location to some people just put sumps. I'm not sure where that sump goes. That way we can circle. If that sump eventually goes to the septic system, we need to mark that, because that's something I can recommend be removed. Also, footer discharge location. I added that. Sometimes these would be separate. If the footer goes to the septic system, that's something that needs to be corrected also. We don't need that clean water. These are 2 clean water issues, softener and then footer. We don't need those going to the septic system. Any changes so far? Nope. Page 3 is the inspector's signature. That's just going to, we have some larger companies that have multiple inspectors. Sometimes they can't read their signature, so we're putting those on the form, so I want to be able to read that so they can print their name beside their signature. That way I can tell who was actually out there and put it on the form correctly. Sometimes I can catch their first name and not their last. Usually I end up calling and saying, who was this Adam? Or who's this Joe? And then I made inspection dates longer. If we go out multiple days, 2, 3 days, that way you can have plenty of room to do that. And there's still the regular writing underneath all this, and I'll have forms to pass out to the service providers here in a second. Distances is something that popped up here in the past week, where we have a septic tank that's heading towards the neighbor's property, and we noticed that the neighbor's well is probably like 20 feet off of where the septic probably is. 20 to 40 feet, somewhere around there. So what we want to know is, if it's 100 foot or less into the neighbor's, close to the neighbor's well, if you can identify it. Some neighbor's wells are going to be under the front porch, a buried casing or something like that where you can't see it. But if there's casing that's above grade that you can see, and we think there could be a leach well, like this one, we maybe think there's a leach well on this property, and if so, we're 45 feet away from the leach well with the neighbor's water. So that's why we added this to the distance page, and that's going to be, I just added it below some of the other required stuff, but it's just down here. So like I said, I'll hand these out. These are going to be on the website this afternoon. Appreciate if you start using the new forms. That way I can start reviewing them the way we like. But other than that, that's the major changes of the report that we're going to have. I appreciate you guys being a little patient with me. Sometimes I get 2 or 3 days out, and I need to get those together. in review here, complete a certificate. I'm going to email them or fax them to you. I don't email realtors. Usually it's best if I send them back to you guys. That way you guys have control who it goes to. If a realtor would call me, I would email them. But I'm going to email just you back, the inspector, then you can send it out to whoever you want. That way, if you haven't got paid for it, at least you maybe can hold it up a little bit. But if they request it from me, I'm going to send it to them. Invoicing, we haven't had much issues. Just to let you know, when we invoice, we will invoice, well, pretty much 30 days behind. So if you're behind, haven't paid your invoice for the month prior, then that's when I will probably send you an email with your last report or something like that saying, hey, you owe $50, you owe $25 for this invoice. Make sure you pay it. You know, I won't review anymore until that's taken care of. So that's the main gist of the changes. Like I said, the email, fax, like I said, I just want to reiterate, it goes to you guys, and you guys send it out to realtors, title agencies, whoever. And then that's about it. Any questions? Changes to the form? Anything? Yes?
I kind of missed a little bit about that water well. Were you talking about with that?
Distances, when we can see, when there's an issue of we think a water well is, a neighbor water well is within 100 feet or less, we just like you to give the distances on that. So,
I wonder where that came up from. No.
so you know, if the water well is 100 feet or less, when you have huge parcels with 5 acres or something like that, it's not going to be such a big deal. But when you have smaller allotments, like down a moorland allotment or something like that, where you have water wells and septic systems together, you need to let us know how close some of those are, you know, to those septic systems. Because a lot of times, if they are less, then we'll need to make sure we get a water sample that's clean, and you know, probably a variance if that's, or replace it if need be.
All right, thanks, Jason.
So yeah. So yeah, I'll just go back up real quick, just review for some of these who came in late. Inspector's signature, I wanted you to print a name. They said some larger companies have more than one inspector, so I can't tell who they are. Like I said, for those who come in late, we now have access to leach wells, yes or no, and I also put down here, pretty much what we're measuring here is airspace. So we want top of lid to water level. So we're going to know how much airspace is in those leach wells.
Jason,
Yes.
did I just hear you say that if the neighbor's well is less than 50 feet, we're responsible for
It depends.
a water
No.
on their property?
No.
Okay,
We may
We
take
may.
care of that.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
No, we just want to know if it is, like I said,
Then you'll
there's
know.
been an occasion where we think there might be a leach well within 45 feet of the neighbor's well. That's something that we need to know, because that's more of a concern than.
It's your concern, not mine.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
We know sometimes you're not going to be able to see them or know them. So use as you need NA. I mean, if it's the 5 acre tract is well over 100 feet, not applicable. Or unknown. If you just can't tell, I know we're not asking you to traipse all over the neighbor's property, but if it's plain to see, this one we just had, like Jason said, was probably about 30 feet, and it was from a leach well. So that was an issue. When you can readily identify those, we want to make sure we try to get it down. And we'll take care of it after that.
Are you concerned with the tank or the well?
Well, both.
Either or.
Either or. The leaching component is more important than the tank, but
Right.
either one, yeah.
But you want to know either
Yeah,
one?
and like I said, we're only going to see this when we get into those smaller, you know, postage stamp allotment sizes where we have septic still and we have water wells still. And some of those wells are going to be hard to see because some of those are probably going to be under front porches. You just have to guess. I mean, you don't need to go on the neighbor's property if you can't see it. Maybe walk the property line if you can see it from there. The other thing, like I said, if you have, this is the beginning of the thing, diversion box, distribution box, I added distribution. I want to know the condition of those, whether it's satisfactory, deteriorating. If the concrete's, you know, starting to deteriorate, that's something we need to know, then I can recommend replacing it. But back here is where I'm going to probably track to make sure they replace it. Whether it's collapsing, and I'll add that here, collapsing or inhibiting flow. If the box is totally falling apart and it's collapsed and it's only going in one line versus 4 lines, then that's something we'll need to know to get that fixed.